Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Public safety is the top priority and responsibility of government. It's so important. It's such an important role that public safety plays because it protects our life, our liberty, and our property. And the Arizona Senate Republicans have made it one of our highest priorities to support. Today is about keeping Arizona families safe and making sure our laws are as strong as possible when it comes to protecting children from sexual predators. I want to thank Senator Shauna Bullock for sponsoring this important legislation, fighting for its passage. I also want to thank Pinal County Attorney Brad Miller for his leadership and Beth Goulden for the tremendous amount of work she has put into making this effort a reality. And later you'll hear from Dr. Brecken Blades, whose expertise as a forensic psychologist will help guide this board in developing the very best policies for this state. Last year, we passed Senate Bill 1630 to create Arizona Sex Offender Management Board. This year, through SB 1616, the budget, we provided the funding to make sure the board can do its job. This means we're putting experts in place to create strict statewide standards for supervising and treating sex offenders and to make sure the legislature has the strongest recommendations possible to protect the public. Arizona is sending a strong message. Will not compromise when it comes to protecting our children. Public safety will always remain our top priority, and this board is a powerful step toward keeping Arizona safer. With that, I'll turn it over to Senator Bullock.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Shauna Bullock, and I'm the State Senator for District 2, which is North Phoenix. We're here today to discuss what it means for Arizona to have statewide standards and guidelines for the supervision and treatment of sex offenders. I met Beth Goulden in the fall of 2009. At the time, she was an adult probation officer for Maricopa County. She doesn't know this, but I always thought she was a total badass. And yes, I will say that out loud and on the microphone. Fast forward to the interim of 2021. I was still serving in the House, and she reached out to me to explain some issues she believed the legislature might be able to address. In 2022, I filed House Bill 2784, the first iteration of the Sex Offender Management Board. At the time, Beth was still actively employed with Maricopa County, making it more difficult for her to come into the Capitol to testify in favor of why it was imperative we create such a board. When I returned to the Capitol in the summer of 2023, I met with Beth during the interim. She implored me to sponsor the Sex Offender Management Board bill once again. This time was different because she had retired from her position with the county and she could testify before a legislative committee as an expert. Even better, she is Senator Peterson's constituent, so she could have some pull ensuring the bill would be heard. In 2024, I filed Senate Bill 1630, creating the Sex Offender Management Board, outlining the duties of the board's compositions and objectives. Thankfully, the bill was signed into law, but it lacked an appropriation due to the end of session drama that we tend to experience around here. This new board is responsible for creating statewide standards and guidelines for the supervision and treatment of sex offenders. During the interim of 2024, Beth and I took upon ourselves to start meeting with directors and other individuals who were charged with appointing a subject matter expert to this board. When we met with the DPS director, Colonel Glover, he had agreed it was a natural fit to house the Sex Offender Management Board in his department. He also understood I would run an appropriation bill in 2025 for them to hire 2 FTEs to oversee the board. Earlier this year, I filed Senate Bill 1660 to fund the Sex Offender Management Board. The bill included some revisions, along with an appropriation for the Department of Public Safety to hire staff and language on how to fund the board. Sadly, the governor and her budget team didn't support the suggested assessments on how to fund the board moving forward, but she did approve the appropriation. Since components of this bill got rolled into the budget, this board will be funded on September 26th of this year. On June 4th, the President of the Senate appointed me to be co-chair of this board, along with my seatmate, Representative Wilmoth, over in the House. The purpose of the committee is to develop, prescribe, and implement guidelines, standards, and procedures relating adult sex offenders, including adult sex offenders with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and juveniles who have committed sex offenders. Thank you so much for being here. This is a very important issue for us. We as Republicans in the Senate strongly believe and support public safety, and it's my honor to turn this over to Pinal County Brad Miller. Okay.
No, I'm not. No.
We pull the switcher.
Yes.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here today, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for the people standing behind me today. I am Beth Golden with the Pinal County Attorney's Office. I spearheaded this legislation following my retirement from the Maricopa County Adult Probation Department, where I spent 24 years specializing in the supervision of sexual offenders. I want to sincerely thank Senator Bullock for sponsoring this bill and working tirelessly with me. The Sex Offender Management Board bill was extremely bipartisan, which we're proud of, and I want to thank the governor for signing the bill into law. After the stories of sexual abuse fade from the headlines, the supervision of those who have committed sex crimes should not be a mystery. Thousands of Arizona families are impacted by sexual abuse, carrying the pain, shame, and trauma that too often remains unspoken. It is time for us as a state to begin having the difficult but necessary conversations about how we respond, how we protect victims, and how we prevent future harm. The creation of this board will give us the structure and expertise to to guide those conversations, ensure they are informed, honest, and focused on building a safer Arizona. Sadly, sex offenses too often happen in the darkness of night and in secrecy. We at the Pinal County Attorney's Office are invested in ensuring these cases are not forgotten after they're sentenced, and the best experts in the field are shaping rehabilitation and policy across Arizona. Thank you, and with that, I want to introduce Dr. Brecken Blades.
Hello, my name is Dr. Brecken Blades. I am a psychologist with over 12 years of experience in forensic psychology, specializing in the assessment and treatment of sexual misbehavior. I'm honored today to speak about a visionary and necessary step for Arizona, the creation of a sex offender management board. This board brings together voices that too often work in parallel rather than in partnership. Mental health professionals, probation and parole, law enforcement, prosecutors and defense, victim advocates, corrections, policymakers, and community representatives. When those voices align around clear standards and shared accountability, communities are safer, survivors are better supported, and the people under supervision have better access to evidence-based treatment options. Research tells us that evidence-based treatment paired with smart, consistent supervision reduces reoffending and increases community safety. This is not guesswork or wishful thinking. It is the direction of the best available science and the real-world experience of jurisdictions that have done this well. From a clinical perspective, it is imperative that Arizona establish clear, research-informed standards for assessment and treatment to ensure consistent use of best practices. Treatment intensity should match the person's need and level of risk. It should be adjusted for different populations, adults, juveniles, women, and people with cognitive or developmental disabilities. Treatment should help individuals build skills, supports, and meaningful pro-social life goals while directly addressing the behaviors and beliefs that created harm. Treatment is not a soft alternative to accountability. Done right, it is confrontational in the best sense. It requires people to take full responsibility, change distorted thinking, and build self-management skills. From a clinician's perspective, the goal is straightforward. Fewer victims, safer neighborhoods, and lives redirected away from harm. This board is how we align those goals with public safety, how we bridge the gap between what works in psychological terms and what is enacted in policy and practiced on our streets. This initiative is not about choosing between victims and defendants or between safety and fairness. It's about choosing what works. It is about insisting that Arizona's system be as strong, consistent, and transparent as the people it serves deserve it to be. Thank you.
Last but not least, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Brad Miller, Pinal County Attorney. One of the issues that we see in government is we need to look at things that are missing, gaps or issues of accountability. And so thankfully, we have excellent leaders here in the state of Arizona, including Senator Peterson, Senator Bullock, Beth Golden. What they did was identify a gap that sex offenders were not truly being held accountable and victims were not appropriately being cared for or taken care of. In addition, sex offenders were not appropriately being monitored and were not appropriately being treated. That is the reason for this board here today. The Sex Offender Management Board is meant to fill that gap of both protecting of victims and holding offenders accountable, which is the utmost importance, at least for my office in Pinal County. The purpose of this board is to bring together experts from all across the state, people who work in this particular field, people who care about these issues, science-based, to come together and to set standards, the highest standards possible here in the state of Arizona, to ensure that sex offenders are being appropriately monitored and watched, and they're being held accountable. That's the purpose for this board. That's the reason why I'm here, is because we need to ensure that the standards of Arizona are high. So I would like to thank you all very much. I would like to thank all of the individuals behind me. Because of their leadership, we have this board and offenders can be held accountable. Thank you very much.